What is going on, guys? Money Webby here. We're back with our favorite DraftKings picks for you guys in Week 8. Hope you guys had a great week in Week 7. Another strange week. Defenses were ruling the day again. Like a ton of defensive touchdowns. No one really scoring an offense besides like Zeke and LeSean McCoy, it felt like. Dak had a nice week. So hopefully you guys had a few of those guys in your lineups. I recommended Dak and LeSean McCoy. The wide receivers were disappointing. Demaryius Thomas had an 80-yard catch called back because of offensive pass interference. And A.J. Green started the game off well, like 41 yards in the first 2 drives, and then nothing after that. Andy Dalton really had like no time in the pocket. He was just getting sacked like in 2 or 3 seconds every time, it seemed like. Couldn't really go through his reads, and it seemed like he wasn't even really looking for A.J. Green that much after the first 2 drives, so that kind of sucked for us. But the rest of the plays seemed to work out for the most part. Some good plays at tight end, Hunter Henry and Evan Ingram. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video last week. We got over 400 likes on the video, like I asked for, so thank you so much for that, guys. Let's keep that going. Let's try to get over 400 again this week. If we can do that, I really appreciate it. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, to get these DraftKings picks every single week. I do NBA DraftKings picks, betting picks every week for the NFL. We went 4-1 last week in my picks, so let's try to keep that going and those as well. So definitely keep it locked here. And yeah, so I got my favorite plays at every single position. At quarterback, we're going to start looking at quarterback. We got Tom Brady at the top at 7,600, Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz. I'm going to go with Carson Wentz at 7,200. Going against my favorite matchup in San Fran. We saw that last week. Dak had a very easy day. Didn't even have to throw it that much, and he still had a great DraftKings point total there against San Fran. Just a terrible secondary. They have no cornerbacks to really compete with Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Agholor, Torrey Smith, and they got Ertz on the inside. So I think Wentz is going to eat in this spot. Their left tackle just got hurt, so maybe they don't run the ball as much, like especially on the left side. So that could help Wentz. Maybe some more pass attempts here, but he hasn't even needed that many passing yards to really perform on DraftKings. Like, he's at over 22 DraftKings points in each of the last 3 games, and only one of those games he has over 300 yards. He's really relying on those touchdowns throughout the year, so I think that's going to easily happen again. I see at least 3 passing touchdowns in this game, and he also gets some rushing yards. He got 63 last week. With the left tackle out, maybe some more pockets kind of break down for him, and he starts running again. He has some nice legs, so at 7,200, I think he can return the value there. Just have another big week, especially if the 49ers can keep it close, then Wentz will have a huge week in that spot. Next up, though, we got Cam Newton at 6,600 going against the Bucs. He burned me last week, a terrible game, 10 DraftKings points. But the thing is, he's still running the ball a lot. Over 40 rushing yards in 3 out of the last 4 games. He might not be throwing the ball well, but against the Bucs, I think that will really help him out. Those passing woes will kind of go away in this good matchup. Tampa Bay secondary has been horrendous this year. Tyrod Taylor was able to do some damage against them through the air with their tight ends. And Tyrod Taylor, he got 53 rushing yards as well, good for 20 DraftKings points. So I think Newton can do that if Tyrod Taylor could do it. Get some rushing yards and some touchdowns here. He didn't get any touchdowns last week, so that really hurt him. And it was against the Bears, who really were trying to like chew out the clock. It seemed like Jordan Howard got over 20 carries and only like 60 yards, and Mitch Trubisky only threw the ball like 10 times, I think. So I think that game won't happen again here. We're going to have an upward tempo game. More plays for Cam Newton to really get it going. That rushing yard still should be around the same total as well, hopefully. So that kind of adds to his floor and his upside as well. So I think Newton can have a very big week here at 6,600, a little bit cheaper for us. So I really like him at quarterback, and a little bit lower, we got Kirk Cousins, 6,400, going against the Cowboys here, another team that doesn't have a great secondary. He's having a good year, under the radar kind of, over 20 DraftKings points in each of the last 4 games, and it seems like they're giving him more opportunity to really get it going. Over 35 pass attempts in the last 2 games. He gets a bit of rushing yards as well. So with Josh DOCTSON now on the outside, I think he's better than Terrell Pryor, at least it seems like it. So I think Terrell Pryor, Jamison Crowder, and Jordan Reed, also Vernon Davis looks pretty good as well. I think they can do some great damage against this Cowboys secondary. Kirk Cousins last year, he kind of shredded the Cowboys. Good for 364 yards and 450 in the 2 games against the Cowboys. So I think he can have a similar outing to one of those outings over 300 yards and the touchdowns, maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns in the spot as well. So he can easily return a ton of value for us and have a huge week. So I really like Kirk there. And for my final guy, it's going to be Andy Dalton at 5,700, going against another terrible secondary in the Colts. They lost one of their best pieces back there in Malik Hooker, their rookie free safety. He was having a pretty solid year for a rookie, and he just got hurt. He's done for the year. So I think Andy Dalton should be able to open up the offense against his defense, maybe some less pass rush against them, because the Colts pass rush isn't as good or nearly as good as the Pittsburgh one that he faced last week. And when he's had the big weeks, it's gone against teams that have bad secondaries and not as good of a pass rush, like the Cleveland Browns and the Buffalo Bills. He had a solid little game, which doesn't really have a great pass rush. So I think Dalton can get it done. AJ Green should have a big week with Dalton in this game. The touchdown should be there. One thing could be concerned about it will be the game flow, I guess, against the Colts, but that didn't really matter against the Cleveland Browns when he went off. So I think a big game is coming for Andy Dalton at 5,700. I love the price. So those are the 4 quarterbacks I'm looking at. We got Dalton, Kirk Cousins, Cam Newton, and Carson Wentz. I love those 4 options. Moving on to running back now. So looking at running back, the top option for me is going to be Zeke Elliott, as it should for everyone else. At 9,200, he had a crazy good week last week against San Fran. Don't really want to get burned by fading Zeke again this week. And at 9,200 without Le'Veon Bell, I think he's almost a must-play here. Going against Washington, their run defense isn't that good, and their pass defense is pretty solid. They got Dunbar, Breland, and Josh Norman might be coming back. So those are some good cornerbacks on the outside against the Cowboys wide receivers who haven't been that good this year. I think Zeke is going to get a ton of work in this game. I can see over 30 carries in this game. Some checkdowns out of the backfield as well. He looked great on that 72-yard catch last week. Looks fully back to his old form. He's getting the touchdowns a lot this year. And this game is going to be another high-scoring game between them and the Redskins. So I think another touchdown is easily coming for Zeke. So I love him at 9,200. An interesting pivot is LaShawn McCoy at 8,700, but I think the price tag is a little bit too high going against Oakland. Their run defense has been pretty good, so I think McCoy and GPP, his ownership shouldn't be that high because Zeke should be highly owned in this matchup, or at least he should be. But he can be an interesting pivot, McCoy that is. But for some cheaper running backs to pair with those two, LeGarrette Blount is the first guy I'm going to talk about at 50-100 against San Fran. I mentioned I like Carson Wentz, but I think the first half is going to be all Carson Wentz, and then LeGarrette Blount is going to take over in the second half and just getting a ton of rushing yards, chewing the clock for the Eagles here, as they should get up big. Even if they don't get up big, I think they should be working, running the game, be able to run the ball as well against San Fran's bad run defense. We saw that with Zeke last week. He got 150 rushing yards, and I think LeGarrette Blount could easily get a touchdown here. Only 2 rushing touchdowns on the year. But we saw last year with the Patriots, he got like 18 rushing touchdowns. He's a good red zone back, and I think he can easily get one here against San Fran. We saw with Zeke and Dak last week. Both of them got a ton of touchdowns, so I think that's going to happen with the Wentz and LeGarrette Blount in this matchup against San Fran. So I love that spot for Blount. And for a cheaper guy, his ex-teammate on the Patriots, Dion Lewis, at 4,600 against the Chargers here. One of the worst run defenses in the league. They're allowing 140 yards on the ground every game. That's second worst in the whole NFL, and his touches keep on going up and up. 7 carries against Tampa Bay, 11 against the Jets, and 13 against the Falcons, and he's done very good with those touches, so there's no reason for the Patriots to stop giving it to him. He's getting long, nice little chunk gains, 25 yards, 31 yards, so he's a really good piece for this Patriots offense. They should keep giving it to him. I think he could get 15 carries in this matchup against the Chargers and get around maybe even 100 yards and maybe even a touchdown here as well. So I love Dion Lewis in this good matchup against the Chargers. And for my final guy, Jalen Richard at 4,300. He'll probably be pretty popular with Marshawn Lynch being suspended for this game. Richard is the better of the 2 running backs between him and DeAndre Washington, but the only concern is that Washington did get the goal line carry last week, but I think Richard is going to get a lot of yards here. He's going to get over 10 touches here. He's a very good receiving back as well, 4 for 45 last week. I think he gets some nice check down work here for the Raiders offense, and he should be getting more carries out of the backfield. Even though Washington is there, Richard will be doing better than Washington, I believe. This is a more explosive back, better for this offense, so I love Jalen Richard in this matchup at 4,300. I think he could return a lot of value, especially if he gets a touchdown here. So I love him at that price. So those are the 4 running backs: Rashard, Dion Lewis, LeGarrette, Blount, and Zeke Elliott at the top. So let's move on to wide receiver now. So looking at wide receiver, my number 1 guy at the top is going to be Mike Evans at 7,900. I also like AJ Green to pair with Andy Dalton, but Mike Evans, based on like price per dollar, I think he's going to return more value in this matchup against the Panthers. Their pass coverage isn't that great, and Evans, he's at the consistent targets week by week, around 10 per game. And the red zone targets are always there. So I think he's a great cash game play, especially in this matchup against Carolina. The game should be close throughout. And the Panthers, they have a very good run defense as well. So that means more work probably coming from Mike Evans in the spot. Doug Martin's really struggled to get anything going on the ground. So I think Winston will be throwing the ball a lot to Mike Evans in this matchup. Going against Bradbury, who will be kind of undersized against Mike Evans. So I love him in this matchup. And for another wide receiver in the same game, Kelvin Benjamin at 6,400, another guy who was a great matchup against the Bucs cornerbacks who have been horrendous, so a good pairing with Cam Newton. Last year, looking at Kelvin Benjamin against the same Tampa Bay team, he went 6 for 93 with a touchdown and also 5 for 70, so at least 12 DK points in both of those games. He's had some nice consistent work over this whole entire year. Those targets have been there for the most part. Last week, they really struggled on the offense against the Bears, so he had to hit down his performance last week. But I think he'll get over double digits again in this spot. Only 1 touchdown on the year. I think that's a little bit fluky. I think he'll get a touchdown possibly in this matchup, as he's their best red zone target by far. So I love Kelvin Benjamin against either Hargraves or McClain on the outside. They moved Hargraves into the inside of the slot cornerback last week because he was just so bad on the outside. And both of those guys are undersized against Benjamin. They're both not good. Grimes has been okay this year, but he's still not that good. So I think whatever cornerback Kelvin gets matched up against, he's going to feast in this spot. So I love him at 6,400. And for another guy right below him, Michael Crabtree at 6,300. But this is kind of a thing you kind of have to check out throughout the week. I think Tre'Davious White, their best cornerback on Buffalo, is probably going to be matched up against Cooper for the most part. He saw him in college, actually. They matched up against each other. LSU against Bama. They have their rivalry, that blood between them too, like the bad blood between them. I think he's going to try to go against Cooper in the spot, freeing up Crabtree against the worst number 2 cornerbacks for the Bills. So I think Crabtree has a big week if that does come to fruition here. But keep a track of that throughout the week. And also he's a go-to option in the red zone, as we've seen this year. Already 6 touchdowns. So even if White is matched up against Crabtree, which I don't think will happen, Crabtree could easily catch a touchdown against him just in the red zone, using that big frame and big ability to go up and get the ball. We saw that game-winning touchdown against the Chiefs. He got it like twice. They called it offensive pass interference, and then he called it again because he's Michael Crabtree, a beast in the red zone at 6,300. Nice little price tag with a consistent production he's been giving us this year. And for a great cheap option, I love this guy this week. It's going to be Josh DOCTSON, a great guy to pair with Kirk Cousins here against the Cowboys secondary. They're not good, like I was saying. And DOCTSON is finally getting the full snaps. 54 out of 64 snaps last week. Secondary not good, like I was saying. Highest over-under of the slate, like I mentioned before, was Zeke Elliott. A lot of points are going to be possible in this matchup for DOCTSON. Only 5 targets last week. Over this preparation for the Cowboys game, they'll probably get some more chemistry between DOCTSON and Kirk. Pryor seems like he's on the way out of that offense. So I think DOCTSON is going to take the training wheels kind of off his bicycle in this spot against the Cowboys. They're going to need him big time in this matchup. This game is a huge game for the Redskins. He's shown that big play potential against Oakland, that 52-yard touchdown. So he's a great matchup against his bad secondary. And also he's a good option in the red zone as well. So I think DOCTSON can return a lot of value. Even if he just catches like 1 pass for a touchdown, he's already going to be returning value on this price tag at $3,900. Underpriced. That was probably priced before they realized that Pryor is like benched before this game. So I think he's going to be popular, but it's going to be worth it here. DOCTSON is a great play. So I love him at the end of my wide receiver play. Cheap guy to throw in your lineup. So DOCTSON at $3,900. I think Jordan Matthews could be interesting, but he hasn't really been getting any targets against the bad Oakland secondary. And then we got Kelvin Benjamin, like I was talking about, Michael Crabtree, and Mike Evans at the top. Also like AJ Green. So those are the plays at wide receiver. Now let's go on a tight end. So looking at tight end, I'm probably trying to pay up for one of these guys at the top or go all the way down to a cheap tight end, which I love. I'll get into that in a second. But the guy at the top Rob Gronkowski at 7,100. I think he's going to have a big week with those good cornerbacks for the Chargers and the outside. I think they'll limit guys like Cooks and Hogan, meaning more targets for Gronk over the middle of the field. We have seen the upside that this guy has, over 20 DraftKings points in 3 out of the 6 games this year. So I love him. I think he'll get a touchdown in this game. And at 7,100, it's not a bad price tag with the upside he always has. So I see a big week coming for Gronk and some other guys. Hunter Henry in the same game at 4,800. Going against the Pats, they also have some good cornerback play with Malcolm Butler. I think he'll do some work on Keenan Allen, kind of limiting him. And also Badamosi, a guy that came out of nowhere from the Patriots special teams, has been very good, so he could easily limit Tyrell Williams as well, freeing things up for Hunter Henry. So I think he'll get some more targets with the Chargers working from behind in this game. So Henry, I think, will get maybe around like 8 targets, like 5+ catches, some yardage, and maybe even a touchdown as a cherry on top. So I think he can return good value on that price tag. It keeps on going up with those snaps and the Chargers using them each week. It's great to see, as Antonio Gates is pretty much just a corpse. That guy can't do nearly the same thing as Hunter Henry. So I love him in that spot. Then Jordan Reed at 4,700 for the Redskins. I think he could have a big week against the Cowboys, but I don't feel as safe about it as I do with Henry and Gronk, because Reed's been up and down. He always gets randomly hurt, and you never know. I think Vernon Davis looks good as well. So Jordan Reed, a good upside play, but I would favor Henry and Gronk, I believe, in their matchup. So that's another guy, though, Jordan Reed. And for my cheap guy, like I was saying, Ryan Griffin, way too cheap at 3,100 for the Houston Texans. Going against Seattle with their great cornerback play with Sherman and the other guys they got on that team, I think they're really going to limit Hopkins and Will Fuller. Will Fuller really struggles with physical play on the outside, so that if they get in his grill and just start like pressing him every down, I think he's going to really struggle to get off the line. And then Ryan Griffin is going to be getting a lot of work, intermediate work over the middle of the field for Watson, and it's going to mean a lot more targets for Griffin. He got 8 targets last game against the against the Cleveland. And that was in a negative game script as well. They were up big in that game, and he was still getting the work. He went 3 for 52. So I really like Ryan Griffin in this matchup against Seattle. Evan Ingram had a nice little week against them last week. I think he went for like 6 for 60 yards and a touchdown. So I think Griffin can get it done. I love him at his price tag. Only 3,100. He doesn't need to do much at all to return on that price tag, return value on that price tag. So I love him. So Ryan Griffin, Hunter Henry, Jordan Reed, and Gronk are the guys I'm looking at for tight end. So that's really it I got, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it. We got to get over 400 likes again on this video, guys. I love the support that you guys are showing me. I really appreciate it. The likes help me out a lot, so keep those going, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, to get these winning DraftKings picks every single week. And you can follow me on Twitter at MoneyWebby for any questions on like guys who to play, or season-long questions, or whatever kind of questions you have. What I'm eating for dinner that night, maybe some questions on what to wear that night. I don't know, like anything you can ask me at MoneyWebby. Definitely follow me there, and you can comment any questions down below in this video for anything else as well. So that's all I got, guys. I wish you guys the best of luck this week. Hopefully we do win some money, take down a Millie Maker maybe, but we'll see you back here next week.